Greetings, everyone, and welcome. It is April the 12th, coming to you today with a co-video with Professor Gertis, my dear friend and partner. So on both channels it is. Hello, friend.
Mm-hmm. Hey, what's happening?
What's happening is Sergey Lavrov speaking a lot of English today. So I called Prof. I said, did you happen to hear Sergey Lavrov's videos and speaking in English? He goes, no. And that's because most of the world is not even aware, but there actually is a huge forum going on today, tomorrow in Turkey. It's called the Antalya Diplomacy Forum. This is it right here. Massive international leaders from around the world. Of course, no Americans are there. Sergey Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia, is one of the keynote speakers. He spoke today and he speaks in English. I think it's going to be very powerful for people to hear. The theme
His English is good. His English is
good
and the content is terrible.
You're going to hear it. Reclaiming diplomacy in a fragmented world that's the theme of the conference. And I will tell you this. Yes, Ukraine was there. Subiga, the foreign minister, he also spoke. It's really powerful. So what I suggested to Prof was I'll play the video clip and then get your initial response since you haven't heard it. So are we game for that?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Here we go, guys. Let me do this. Here are the 5 videos. Lavrov statements in Turkey, Antalya Diplomacy Forum. The first video clip I'm going to play for you, Prof, is Lavrov says it's about the people, not the territory.
But on territories, I want to make a very important point.
Sure.
We are not about territories. We are about people who live on these lands, whose ancestors lived there for centuries, who founded cities like Odessa, Catherine the Great, who built factories, who built roads, ports, and these people, by twist of history during the Soviet days, became not part of Russia, but part of Ukraine, because this was considered a consolidating factor to neutralize the ultra-radicals living in the western part of Ukraine when it joined the Soviet Union after the war. The people who live there, they are being deprived of all human rights.
Well, you got the last part right.
He did. They are being deprived.
People who are living where exactly deprived by human rights? In a Russian-controlled occupied zone? Yeah, that's
correct.
So what I just heard him say,
would get you. Go ahead.
Yeah, you're right. So, okay, so we ought to tell the audience that you set me up here because when you called, you're like, I have this thing. I want to hear what you think about this thing. And so, you know, this like waving red meat in front of a stupid dog. I would fail him for making that argument because what he said was, it's not about the land, it's about the people. But here's how it can be about the land because it's about the people. Like, so it really, he didn't say it's not about this, it's about that. He said it's about this, and it's really about this because while I'm saying it's about that, it's actually about this because the people that were pre-existing on the land are all Russians. And that goes with the theory that is, the theory that the Russians have that the Ukrainians aren't their own separate people. They're just Russians who are traitors to Mother Russia. That's the way that they see them from everything I can detect in the Russian propaganda posts that I'm imbibed trying to understand what they're doing. Okay, I'm going to shut up now.
You can shut up, but you see how the video just like, boom, how could he even say that? But he said it in
twisted.
English, and he said it today. He even used the word twist. He called it a twist of history. And the territory versus people. It's not about territory.
So no, let's talk. I said I would shut up, but I can't not. Okay, so it's a twist of history that Ukraine was no longer. So Ukraine was its own little thing, or at least Crimea was its own little thing within the Soviet Union. But Russia's not the Soviet Union. And so that's the twist of history, because Ukraine existed, and even existed to the degree that in the Soviet times it was its own country within the Soviet Union, and they liked that at that point when it was, extra representation in the UN and that sort of thing. But okay, anyway,
well, listen, if you want to really fail his statement, territories versus people.
Oh man, it's bad. It's bad. It's deceptive and it's intended to be deceptive. I mean, like he knows how to manipulate the language in order to get
He knows exactly what he's doing. But to destroy his argument about territories versus people, he then starts talking about territories because we have cities there. He specifically says Odessa. That is about territory. He says we have factories there. That's about territory. He says we have ports there. That's about territory, which last night, by the way, guys, was the first time Odessa, the port, has been hit since the Trump-Putin call. So all gloves are off, the twist of history. Okay, let's go to the next one. Yeah, it gets crazy. So now he's going to talk about root causes, and he even calls out Witkoff.
Repeat again what I said then, and I repeated this publicly also. When we speak about eliminating root causes of any conflict, including Ukrainian conflict, this is the only way to resolve the problem and to establish long-lasting peace. Remove root causes. President Trump was the first and so far, I think, almost the only one among the Western leaders who repeatedly, with conviction, several times stated that it was a huge mistake to pull Ukraine into NATO. And this is one of the root causes which we quoted so many times. They also mention now another thing which related to the root causes, namely territorial issue. They publicly, including Steve Witkoff, they recognize that the territorial issues would have to be handled in the context of the long-lasting settlement. And
this is the Americans.
The Americans.
So he goes right back to Witkoff. That is about yesterday when Witkoff confirmed with Putin that the fastest way to peace is to give away the 4 regions. The whole narrative is building, guys.
Yeah. So he just went back to territory. In that clip. It was not about territory, but he went right back to territory.
He went right.
I don't even know which direction to attack here, because there's 3 things here. One, the second is like, okay, let's talk about NATO. What happened with NATO? It was after the Clinton administration, we were getting to the Bush administration, and George W. Bush is like, yeah, you know what? I mean, this could be on the table. And it was the Germans largely, and somewhat the French, that kind of kept them out. Mostly the Germans. Angela Merkel was really the cause, because she has this like soft spot for the Russians for some bizarre reason I don't quite fully comprehend, because I think she grew up in East Germany, if I'm not mistaken. And so it's almost like Stockholm syndrome. At any rate, so they blocked it there. And so, okay, and Trump understood that they shouldn't be part of it. What gives Russia the right to have a veto over who's in NATO? Like that's the first part. But if you're going to get to the root cause,
he's going to answer
like
that.
The root cause is Russian imperialism. I mean, that's what it really amounts to, not this whole thing about NATO or whatever. Like a defensive alliance, I get it. You don't want them on your border, but you could have treated them nicer, and then they wouldn't be running away. Like this is what every one of these NATO countries voluntarily ran away from, because they could have rejoined a Soviet-ish kind of bloc, and they said, you know what, safer over here. So, okay.
Your question is going to be answered right now by Sergei Lavrov. Because now he says it's because the world misunderstands Russia.
When you come to somebody's region. You should respect the views of the regionals, of the region, and host countries, if you wish, and not impose your rules like our European and British colleagues are running all over the world. It used to be also Biden administration involved in this, running all over the world saying, don't trade with Russia, don't sell to Russia, don't buy from Russia, don't meet with Russia. I know because those are the facts. And this is not multipolarity. This is obsession with your global role, which you invented yourself and which worked during colonialism, during post-colonial times for some period. But now there is a second awakening of the global South.
Second awakening of the global South. That's your answer. The world.
Okay, so
different world.
The only thing I really want to talk about there is he loves talking about colonialism and how the West was colonial and that sort of thing. You know, your colonialism, look at a map of Russia and you can see your colonialism year over year as you've expanded by colonizing your neighbors. The only difference is you were lazy. You didn't go somewhere else to colonize. You would just, who's next door? Well,
exactly.
Now it's Ukraine.
Just expanded.
So, okay, what do you think of that?
A lot of the talk that's been going on in regard to the tariffs from the Trump administration, and we're not talking about that, but there's been talk that one of the goals is to drive division between China and Russia. So today,
this is the best case scenario.
Best case
right?
scenario.
That would be what's motivating Trump is a best case scenario. That would be, yeah. I don't know that it is. I don't know that he's thinking that deeply. But I can't say he's not.
Correct.
I'm not in his head.
That's what they're saying out there. Okay. Well, this will divide China and Russia. So the question was asked point blank to Sergei Lavrov today. Can a wedge be driven between China and Russia?
In none of our contacts with the Americans, in none, be it phone conversation, be it meeting in person, this issue was never raised or even hinted upon. Never. And I think that President Trump and his people, they are very experienced in life. And when you understand life, it's much easier to do politics. And since he understands life, I believe those who understand life, they would never even think about trying to drive a wedge between Russia and China.
There you have it.
Okay. That's a no true Scotsman fallacy that he's using. That no true Scotsman would ever believe this, or if you really are something, you wouldn't do that. It's a weird way of arguing, but it's why?
But you see the viewpoint. You see the viewpoint.
Why would the Trump administration raise that in talking to them? If you're really trying to drive a wedge between Russia and China, would you be like, hey, guys, what we really want to do is drive a wedge between you and your allies? Would you do that? I mean, it seems kind of absurd. Yeah.
But I'm trying to demonstrate to the world all the time about language. You see, we do not have American politicians and negotiators that can go and sit at a table and start speaking in fluent Russian. Pretty much everybody on the Putin team, all of them, can speak extremely good English and go right into it, make narratives, get on the big forums, get on the TVs. That is the foreign minister of Russia at the huge forum today. It's global, spewing this in English. The world is hearing it. It was played Russian times all over the world. So the message goes out is the point. And what he's doing, he's glorifying the Trump administration. And at the same time, providing the information that it's the Trump administration that's working very well because they understand life. You know, Biden, they didn't know nothing.
Yeah.
They understand life. Witkoff's a good guy. They understand root causes. It works, this plan. Whether the theories are right, whether the arguments are right, they have the platform and they use it in English, man, powerfully.
Yeah, in politics, they call this being on message, and they'll
Yes.
say, "What do you think about the economic package?" Well, you know, and you, if you're on message and you want to talk about, say, the military, and the economic package is useful because it supports the military, and the military has to be prioritized because blah 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 blah. Because the military, right? That's being on message. It's answering the question the way that you wanted to focus everything back to that message. And Lavrov, to his credit, does that well, but that's because he's been there for what, 20,
he's an
30 years or
expert.
something like that. Yeah.
Unfortunately for me, and I'll just throw this in here, and then we're going to go to the big one you said about NATO earlier. He speaks about NATO. For me, it's disappointing, just personally, that Sergei Lavrov can get this type of platform, speak in English, spew the Russian narrative, show that the Russian narrative and the American team is kind of lining up the way he's working his words. And our equivalent, Marco Rubio, I don't know where he's at and what he's doing.
Yeah,
and we have,
I talked about this in my 5 big
I know
stories.
it.
Is it the email?
Yes, it's a disaster.
I mean,
Listen,
the tweet. Yeah.
this is bad for the U.S., man, because Lavrov is there. He's going the English. He's on point. He's on narrative. And we have Witkoff 4 hours yesterday confirming that Putin's right and the best thing to do is give away territory. And the mineral deals negotiations are going down the toilet as of right now. So, and Lavrov just spewing. Now, you asked the question, or you were making some statements about NATO. Here he is, 2 clips on NATO back to back.
It is not against anybody. It is not against NATO. I think the biggest enemy of NATO is NATO itself and those who were trying to use it to dominate in violation of their own pledges in OSCE. But the fragmentation process, NATO should have been dissolved in the first place after the Soviet Union ceased to exist, after the Warsaw Treaty ceased to exist.
You see, that's where he's taking it.
Okay.
What about the thought
Write some
NATO's
things down
biggest
here.
enemy is NATO?
Yeah. Biggest enemy is itself. And the problem is that those that use it to dominate. See, okay, so this is par for the course for what they say. They do this weird mirroring thing. Whatever they're doing, they're blaming their counterparts on. So if you hear them say something bad about Ukraine, are they doing it? Or you hear them saying something bad about NATO or the United States, they're generally doing it. And it should be dissolved. Well, I'm sure you would like it to have been dissolved. Like it's there to check for originally Soviet, now Russian aggression. It's not there because of the Austrians.
Correct.
Right? I mean, it's not there for the Swiss.
Correct.
It's there because of the Russians.
And speaking about NATO, Subiga, the foreign minister of Ukraine, at the same meetings. Now, I'm pretty sure he was not in Lavrov's meeting. They just don't listen to each other. But Subiga did make a statement about Ukraine and NATO, and here it is, and we'll close out with this. As soon as I can find it here, right there.
Ukraine's NATO membership shouldn't be off the table. It's about transatlantic security and our contribution. Ukraine now has 110 brigades with daily combat experience. This will be a real asset to future transatlantic security. And by the way, the most cost-effective.
There you go. So he gets the transactional thing in there for Donald Trump.
Yeah, he's not wrong about that.
He's not
In fact,
wrong at all.
So, okay, there's a number of ways that you can come at this. The first is if you allow it to fall into Russians' hands. If you allow Ukraine to fall into Russia's hands and they mobilize Ukrainians and grab the tech that the Ukrainians have been able to use, NATO is in a really bad way. Like, I mean, the whole country, if the whole thing fell into it.
Well, just look at the map.
That's the first thing.
Look
If
at
you
the map
look at
there. It's a lot of chunk.
Go ahead.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
the connection to the Black Sea, that's the warm water. They want it. Lavrov talking himself today about Odessa. It connects them to the Transnistria in Moldova, which could fall in the New York Minute if Russia went over there up against that border. So maybe people don't realize it, but Ukraine geographically, it's a huge chunk of land, even compared to all of Europe. So to bring credence to your argument there.
Yeah. And then the second part of that is like, if you're looking at how to bolster NATO on the cheap, like Ukraine being in it, that'd be huge. Now you've got a huge working army that is battle tested, knows what it's doing, right on the front line to defend I mean, like, how would you not do that from that perspective? Oh, because the Russians are going to be upset about it. Well, this is why they need to lose and then have no say in it. I mean, that's what it means. If you just declare a ceasefire and everybody, okay, just everybody put down your weapons. Like, who's going to pay the reparations for all the damage that's been done? Europe, when Russia was the aggressor. I mean, I'm sure Lavrov would like that, but I mean, yeah, okay. Anyway, NATO being, when I first interviewed Starsky at the end of it, I said, so do you think that NATO should be allowed to join Ukraine? And he thought I said the opposite, which is what you would have expected me to say, and started answering that. No. Do you think NATO should be allowed to join Ukraine? And then he got it and like had a good laugh at it. But I mean, really, like Ukraine has proven itself over 3 years. When we're like, I remember in the first couple of days looking at this like, oh no, like, oh, this is going to go, oh no, what's going to happen here? And here we are, 1,100 and how many days later? Do you know? I mean, I'm not even sure where we are.
Yeah, I can tell you exactly, but it's 1096 or 1097.
I thought we were tipping 11. We're somewhere close to 11.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now.
So at any rate, all those days later, here we are, and they're not able. I mean, the amount of ground that Russia took last year was pitiful for all those casualties. So, go ahead.
Wow. This is the air alarms right now, and it is day 1144.
1144. Okay, I thought it was 11 something.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll tell you,
and so
here's the other thing. Okay, first of all, about the NATO, about the military, and of course, Russia would want NATO to go away and Ukraine not to be a part of it. It's not just their talking point, but in reality, the superiority of Ukrainian soldiers' experience now to wage war in a real life situation. And it's not any longer just, artillery or a tank grouping or
the innovation from drones is
exactly right.
Yeah.
And no country on the planet, America included, other than Ukraine, and I'm sorry to say Russia, has the experience of drone warfare, electronic warfare. And I know everybody's trying to learn from Ukraine and learn from Russia, but they know things and are working on things the rest of the world doesn't even know about.
Yep. And Chinese advisors on the ground to understand and learn lessons. Yeah, that's not going to be pretty. So you want NATO in that category, and like even in the 4 oblasts, like that are currently under Russian control, they're taking them and conscripting these men and pushing them like so. Yeah,
Lugansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson.
Yeah, you don't want that to continue. So
correct. So everybody this way, and of course Crimea as well. They're doing that. So it's a chunk. It's a huge chunk. It's a massive war. And right now, guys, we'll be keeping our eyes in this direction. Russia getting a little bit of steam up there in northern Sumy. We'll talk about that on a different video. But today, I don't know where else you'll be able to see Lavrov speaking English like this. It wasn't broadcast well. Of course, it's not in mainstream news. So please share it. If you're watching on my channel, Please go subscribe to Professor Gertis Explains. And if you're watching,
And vice versa.
and Prof, you can come to Greg Terry Experience. It was so funny. I received an email from a guy who's trying to connect me to some other guys. And he goes, "Hey, Greg, I watched this guy named Professor Gertis. You probably should connect with him. You guys could do
Yeah,
some
I get
good
that every
stuff
once in a
together."
while. Yeah.
I said, and I emailed him back. I said, "Thank you for that. We've got a year and a half now of a torturous relationship, and it's still growing." So, all right, man.
Yeah,
Hey,
so-
you have a great day. Thank you.
Yeah, you too.
Be blessed, guys.